The bedroom door crashed open with such force that the handle punched a hole in the drywall. In that frozen moment, as splinters of wood hung in the air, 3 lives changed forever. I stood in the doorway of my own bedroom, a stranger in my own home, watching my wife of 12 years writhing beneath my friend in our marriage bed. The sheets my mother had given us as a wedding present. The mattress we'd saved for months to buy. "Nathan!" Alina shrieked, her eyes wide with terror. Ryan scrambled backward, tumbling naked off the bed, his face draining of color. "Man, wait!" I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The look in my eyes silenced them both. My name is Nathan Ellis. Until 6 months ago, I was a successful architectural engineer with a thriving consulting business, a beautiful modernist home in a leafy suburb, and what I believed was a loving marriage. I met Alina during my final year of graduate school, a striking woman with intelligent eyes and an easy laugh that made everyone around her smile. She worked in corporate marketing, climbing the ranks quickly with her charm and sharp mind. Our courtship was something out of a romantic comedy. Chance meetings at coffee shops, long walks in the park, passionate discussions about everything from politics to pasta recipes. When I proposed after 18 months, she cried and said it was the happiest day of her life. Our wedding was intimate but elegant, just like Alina had wanted. We honeymooned in Greece, making love on balconies overlooking the Mediterranean, planning our future between bottles of wine. The first decade was good. Truly good. We built our careers, traveled, renovated our dream home. We decided to delay having children to focus on our professional goals, promising to revisit the conversation when we turned 35. We had our arguments like any couple, but they always ended with understanding, compromise, and often making up in the bedroom. Ryan entered our lives 8 years into our marriage. He joined Alina's marketing firm and quickly became her favorite colleague. A charismatic extrovert with carefully tousled hair and expensive clothes, he had the kind of confidence that borders on arrogance. I never particularly liked him, but I made an effort for Alina's sake. "Ryan is brilliant," she would gush after work. "You should have seen how he handled the Westfield presentation today." I smiled and nodded, happy that my wife had found someone who stimulated her intellectually. When Ryan and his wife Jessica began joining us for dinner parties, I made sure to be a gracious host. I mixed their drinks exactly how they liked them, grilled steaks to perfection, and engaged in friendly debate about architecture and design. Jessica was quiet but pleasant, always watching Ryan with adoring eyes while he dominated conversations. I remember thinking they seemed happy enough. The first time Ryan hugged Alina goodbye a bit too long, I dismissed it. When he began texting her at odd hours about urgent work matters, I believed them. When he started showing up at our favorite restaurants by coincidence, I accepted the explanation. I trusted my wife completely. That was my first mistake. The changes were gradual, almost imperceptible at first. Alina began working late more frequently, her excuses varying from project deadlines to client emergencies. I'd call to check in, offering to bring dinner to her office. "Don't bother, Nathan," she'd say with an edge of irritation. "I'm swamped with this campaign. I'll grab something with the team." The team. Always the team. But somehow, whenever she mentioned work anecdotes, Ryan featured prominently in every story. Her phone became an extension of her hand and a fortress. She changed her password, angled the screen away from me when texting, and took calls in another room. If I entered while she was on the phone, the conversation abruptly shifted to work topics. "Just trying to give you some peace," she explained when I asked about it. "You always complain about my work calls disturbing your reading time." I had never once complained about her calls. The physical distance grew in tandem with the emotional one. Our passionate lovemaking dwindled to perfunctory, almost clinical encounters every few weeks. She avoided my kisses, tensed at my touch. The woman who once pulled me into closets at dinner parties for breathless quickies now claimed perpetual headaches and exhaustion. Then came the fitness kick. Alina had always been naturally slim with little interest in exercise. Suddenly, at age 34, she discovered an overwhelming passion for late-night workouts. "The gym is less crowded then," she explained, packing her bag at 8 p.m., "and the endorphins help me sleep better." She'd return nearly 3 hours later, showered at the gym, smelling of unfamiliar soap and avoiding my eyes. The business trips multiplied. Marketing conferences, client meetings, team-building retreats, always last minute, always essential, always with a scattered explanation about booking details that made it difficult to verify anything. I began noticing other things too. New lingerie in her drawer that I'd never seen her wear. A different perfume that she only seemed to apply before leaving for work. Receipts for restaurants I'd never been to on dates we'd spent apart. The most painful sign was the change in how she treated me. Alina became performatively warm, bringing home my favorite desserts, suggesting movies she knew I wanted to see, initiating conversations about my day with an almost theatrical interest. It felt like watching an actress play the role of a loving wife, hitting all the right marks without any genuine emotion behind the gestures. One night, after she claimed to be working late on a Friday, I drove past her office building on my way home from a client meeting. The entire floor was dark. I sat in my car for an hour, stomach churning, before driving home in silence. When she returned at 11 p.m. with a breathless story about a client emergency, I smiled and nodded, saying nothing about what I'd seen. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and felt something break inside me. Not my heart. That had been breaking for months. This was different. This was my faith in everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and the woman I had built my world around. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I made a decision. If Alina wanted to destroy our marriage, that was her choice, but I would be damned if I let her destroy me along with it. I became a different person the next morning, outwardly the same loving, slightly oblivious husband, but inwardly transformed into something colder and more calculating than I had ever been. I didn't confront Alina. I didn't demand answers. Instead, I began gathering information with methodical precision. First, I cloned her phone while she showered. It took less than 5 minutes with software I purchased online. Every text, every call, every photo synced directly to my laptop. I installed a GPS tracker in her car, disguised as a phone charger. I set up cameras throughout our house. Tiny, nearly invisible devices hidden in smoke detectors, picture frames, and air vents. I hired a private investigator to follow Ryan and document his movements. Money well spent, as it turned out. Most importantly, I contacted my attorney, not our family lawyer whom Alina knew, but a shark I'd met through a business associate. I explained my suspicions and asked for guidance on protecting my assets. By the end of the day, we had begun the process of moving everything of value into a protected trust. While I played the role of the unsuspecting husband, evidence poured in. The texts between them made me physically ill. Ryan, miss you already. Can't stop thinking about last night. Alina, me too. It's getting harder to leave you. N is clueless as always. Ryan, how much longer do we have to keep this up? I want you all to myself. Alina, soon. After the anniversary, I promise. The GPS data showed regular stops at an extended stay hotel across town on her gym nights. The cameras captured her phone calls with Ryan when I wasn't home, intimate conversations filled with declarations of love and explicit details of their encounters. The worst discovery came 3 weeks into my surveillance. Through the bedroom camera, I watched Alina on the phone, laughing. I know, it's pathetic, she said to Ryan. He actually believes I'm planning something special for our anniversary. God, I can't wait until this is over and we can stop sneaking around. Yes, I've been looking at listings in Denver. No, he won't contest it if I ask for a divorce right after the anniversary. Nathan always gives me whatever I want. She laughed again. a sound I once loved that now cut through me like a blade. 12 years wasted with the wrong man. At least I'm fixing it now, right? You're the only one who truly knows me, Ryan. The only one who sees me. I watched this video 17 times, each viewing crystallizing my resolve. They were planning to blindside me with divorce papers after our anniversary, after whatever special event Alina was planning. They would take what they could and start a new life together in Denver, leaving me with the scraps of my broken marriage. Not if I struck first. I continued gathering evidence while quietly transferring assets, securing financial accounts, and documenting every aspect of their affair. I learned their patterns, their meeting spots, their plans. I knew Ryan's wife was growing suspicious as well, though she seemed unwilling to accept what was happening. The final confirmation came when I followed them to a jewelry store where Ryan purchased a diamond necklace, a gift for our anniversary, I later discovered. The audacity of it, the sheer disrespect, became the catalyst for what happened next. That night, watching Alina scroll through Denver real estate listings on her laptop while sitting beside me on our couch, something inside me finally snapped into perfect clarity. I knew exactly what I needed to do. Our 12th anniversary fell on a Friday in October. 2 weeks before, I began laying the groundwork for my plan. Henderson wants me in Chicago for the Franklin Tower project presentation, I told Alina over dinner. I've tried to get out of it, but it's too important. I'll have to fly out on our anniversary morning. She made a show of disappointment that never reached her eyes. Oh, Nathan, that's awful timing. Can't they send someone else? It's my design. I have to be there, I said, reaching for her hand. But I promise I'll make it up to you. We'll celebrate when I get back on Sunday. The relief in her expression was poorly concealed. Of course, honey. Work comes first sometimes. I understand. I'm sure you do, I thought, squeezing her hand gently. Over the next 2 weeks, I made visible preparations for my trip, booking flights, easily cancelable, packing a suitcase, arranging an airport taxi. I worked late several nights, telling Alina I was finalizing presentation materials. In reality, I was putting the finishing touches on my own presentation, one that would be delivered in our bedroom rather than a Chicago conference room. 3 days before our anniversary, I installed additional cameras in our bedroom, focused specifically on our bed. I tested the feeds repeatedly, ensuring perfect visual and audio quality. I prepared a secondary recording device as backup. I double-checked the documents my attorney had prepared, confirming that all legal protections were in place. The night before, Alina was unusually attentive, cooking my favorite meal, opening an expensive bottle of wine, initiating sex for the first time in months. I performed admirably, pretending to be unaware that she was merely checking a box before my departure. Afterward, as she slept, I lay awake finalizing every detail of what would happen next. On our anniversary morning, I kissed Alina goodbye at the door, suitcase in hand. I'll call you when I land, I promised. I'm sorry about today. Don't worry about it, she said, already checking her phone. Safe travels. I took the taxi to a car rental facility rather than the airport, picked up the nondescript sedan I'd reserved, and drove to a coffee shop several blocks from our house. Opening my laptop, I connected to the home security system and waited. It didn't take long. 40 minutes after my departure, Alina was on the phone with Ryan. He just left. Yes, all weekend. No, he doesn't suspect a thing. She spent the next hour transforming our home, changing the sheets, lighting candles, chilling champagne. The bottle I'd bought for our 5th anniversary, saved for a special occasion. She showered, applied perfume, and slipped into lingerie I'd never seen. At noon, Ryan arrived with flowers and that diamond necklace. They embraced in our foyer, kissing passionately. Happy anniversary, Ryan laughed, and they both erupted in cruel amusement. To finally being rid of him, Alina said, raising her glass in a toast that burned through me like acid. They drank our champagne, ate takeout from our favorite restaurant, and talked openly about their future plans. Ryan had accepted a position in Denver. Alina would ask for divorce after my return, claiming she'd fallen out of love. They'd wait a respectable amount of time before going public with their relationship. "Nathan will give me whatever I ask for," Alina assured Ryan. "He always has. I'm thinking half the house value, my car, and a generous monthly payment. He can keep his precious business." Ryan smiled, caressing her face. "And then we start our real life." I watched them move from the living room to the kitchen to the couch, their touches growing more intimate, their conversation more explicit. When Ryan finally led Alina upstairs to our bedroom, the final insult I had been waiting for, I closed my laptop, started my car, and drove home, my mind perfectly calm. I parked a block away and approached our house from the rear, using my key to enter silently through the basement door. From my phone, I confirmed they were still in the bedroom, their clothes scattered across the floor, their bodies entwined on the bed where I had slept for 12 years. I moved quietly up the stairs, pausing outside the bedroom door. Through the wood, I could hear Alina's familiar moans, Ryan's grunting encouragement, sounds that should have enraged me but instead left me cold and focused. I counted to 3 and pushed the door open with all my strength. The handle punched through the drywall as the door flew back on its hinges. Alina screamed, scrambling to cover herself with the sheets. Ryan jumped up, naked and disoriented. "Nathan!" Alina shrieked, her face a mask of terror and shock. "Man, wait!" Ryan began, raising his hands in a placating gesture. I didn't speak. I stepped into the room and closed the door behind me. Ryan made his second mistake then. He lunged at me. Perhaps he thought his height advantage would matter. Perhaps he believed his twice-weekly gym sessions had prepared him for this moment. He was wrong. What Ryan didn't know was that behind my mild-mannered architect exterior, I had been boxing and practicing Brazilian jiu-jitsu for 15 years. It was my stress relief, my meditation, something I did 3 mornings a week while Alina was still sleeping. I sidestepped his charge easily, caught his extended arm, and used his momentum to slam him face first into the wall. Before he could recover, I struck him with a precise hook to the liver that dropped him to his knees, gasping for air. "Nathan, stop!" Alina screamed, clutching the sheets to her chest. "You're going to kill him!" "No," I said, speaking for the first time, "but he's going to wish I had." What followed was methodical, not frenzied. I beat Ryan with controlled precision, cracking ribs, blackening eyes, splitting his lip. Each strike was calculated to cause maximum pain with minimal permanent damage. He tried to fight back at first, landing one glancing blow to my jaw before I took him down again. Eventually, he stopped trying, simply curling into a protective ball, whimpering with each impact. When he was sufficiently subdued, I retrieved the zip ties I had placed in my pocket that morning. I secured his wrists to the bedpost, our bedpost, leaving him naked and exposed. Alina had moved to the corner, wrapped in the sheet, her face streaked with mascara tears. "What are you doing? Have you lost your mind? I'm calling the police." "By all means," I said, tossing her phone to her. "Explain to them what you and your lover were doing in our marital bed on our anniversary. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic." Her hand froze halfway to the phone. I took out my own phone and began recording, capturing Ryan's battered face, his naked body, the rumpled bed. I made sure to pan to the anniversary card he had brought, the champagne bottles, the scattered clothes. "What are you doing?" Alina whispered, horror creeping into her voice. "Documenting," I replied calmly. I walked to the closet and returned with a stack of papers, tossing them onto the bed. "Divorce papers," I explained. "Already prepared. You'll find them quite thorough." Alina reached for them with trembling hands. "You may notice there's no division of assets mentioned," I continued. "That's because there are no marital assets left to divide. Everything, the house, the cars, my business shares, was moved into a private trust 6 weeks ago, completely legal and protected. You'll get nothing, Alina. Not a penny." Her face drained of color as she flipped through the documents. "You can't do this. I'm entitled to half of everything." "Actually, I can, and I did." Adultery carries significant weight in this state, especially with video evidence. Speaking of which, I connected my phone to our smart TV and played the surveillance footage, weeks of secret meetings, explicit conversations, and their final damning toast to being rid of me. "I have copies of all your text messages as well," I said, watching her face crumble. "Every detail of your Denver plans, every cruel thing you said about me, every lie you told." Ryan had begun sobbing quietly, still secured to the bedpost. "Please, man, I'm sorry. It just happened. We didn't mean to hurt you." I turned to him, my expression unchanged. "You didn't mean to get caught. There's a difference." I continued recording as I laid out exactly what would happen next. The divorce filing on Monday morning, the evidence that would be submitted to the court, the copies that would be sent to their employer, documenting their misuse of company time and resources for their affair. "And of course, Jessica will receive her own copy," I added, watching Ryan's face contort in fresh horror. "I wonder if she'll be as understanding as I've been." "You're insane," Alina whispered. "This isn't you, Nathan." "No, it isn't," I agreed. "The man you married wouldn't have done this. But that man died the day he heard his wife planning to discard him after 12 years. The man standing before you now is someone entirely different." The doorbell rang then, right on schedule. "That will be Officer Brennan," I said. "A client's brother. He's responding to my call about an intruder in our home. I suggest you get dressed, Alina. And Ryan, well, I'm afraid you'll just have to meet the police as you are." Alina lunged for her clothes. "You called the police? After all this?" "Of course. A strange man broke into our home and assaulted me when I returned early from my business trip to surprise my wife for our anniversary. I defended myself. It's all very clear on our home security footage." I pointed to the visible camera in the smoke detector. "The edited version, of course." I walked to the door. "You have two choices, Alina. Either confess to the affair and face the consequences, or back up my story and at least salvage your reputation. Your call." The look of pure hatred she gave me was almost worth the past 6 months of pain. I went downstairs to let Officer Brennan in, sporting the beginnings of a bruise where Ryan had managed to hit me. The perfect touch to complete my story. The following week unfolded exactly as I had planned. Ryan was arrested for breaking and entering, assault, and attempted sexual assault. The charges wouldn't stick long term, I knew that, but they would create an official record and a mugshot that would follow him forever. His bloody, swollen face made the local news, his name permanently linked to a sordid home invasion story. Alina had chosen to back up my version of events, her self-preservation instinct overriding any remaining loyalty to Ryan. She played the traumatized wife perfectly, though her eyes burned with fury whenever they met mine. On Monday morning, my attorney filed the divorce papers. By Monday afternoon, digital copies of select surveillance footage were delivered to key recipients. Alina and Ryan's employer, documenting their affair on company time and property. Ryan's wife, Jessica, along with financial records showing jewelry purchases and hotel receipts. Alina's parents, deeply religious people who had always treated me like a son. And a carefully curated group of our closest friends. The social and professional fallout was immediate and devastating. By Tuesday, both Alina and Ryan had been called into meetings with HR. By Wednesday, both were unemployed for ethical violations and conduct unbecoming of company representatives. Their industry was small and tightly connected. Everyone knew everyone, and word spread quickly. Ryan's marriage imploded spectacularly. Jessica didn't just leave him. She scorched the earth behind her. She filed for divorce, emptied their joint accounts, and launched a vindictive social media campaign exposing every detail of his infidelity. Ryan's reputation was shredded in real time as mutual friends and family members disowned him publicly. Alina fared no better. Her parents, who had immigrated from a conservative Eastern European country, responded to the evidence with a swift and absolute disowning. Her father called me personally to apologize for his daughter's behavior and to assure me I would always be family to them, regardless of the divorce. The cruel irony wasn't lost on either of us. Our social circle fractured along predictable lines. Most sided with me, the betrayed husband who had caught his wife in the ultimate act of disloyalty. A few remained neutral, uncomfortable with my methodical revenge, but unable to defend Alina's actions. No one actively took their side. Through it all, I remained calm and composed. I played the role of the deeply wounded but dignified husband, accepting condolences with appropriate gravity while never appearing vindictive. In private meetings with mutual friends, I shared just enough evidence to solidify my position without seeming obsessive. The trust I had built over 12 years of being the reliable, kind partner served me well. No one questioned my version of events. The divorce proceeded swiftly. Alina's attorney, after reviewing the evidence and trust documentation, advised her to accept the minimal settlement I offered: her personal belongings, her family heirlooms, and a one-time payment that would barely cover 3 months' rent in a modest apartment. She signed the papers without meeting my eyes. Ryan's downfall continued its spectacular trajectory. After losing his job, his wife, and most of his friends, financial ruin followed quickly. Jessica's divorce attorney was even more aggressive than mine, uncovering hidden debts and gambling issues that further complicated his legal position. Within a month, he was facing eviction from his apartment and driving for rideshare companies to make ends meet. The restraining order Jessica obtained prevented him from entering their former neighborhood, forcing him to sleep on a series of increasingly reluctant friends' couches. Alina's descent was slower, but ultimately more complete. Without financial resources or family support, she moved temporarily into a former co-worker's spare room. When that arrangement soured, as I knew it would, she bounced between cheap extended-stay motels and short-term sublets. Her employment prospects were crippled by her termination and the whispers that followed her. The marketing world had labeled her a liability. She tried reaching out to Ryan, of course. Based on the texts I still monitored, old habits die hard, he rebuffed her increasingly desperate messages. The final exchange was particularly illuminating. Alina: I have nowhere to go. Please, Ryan. We were going to be together. We had plans. Ryan: plans change. This whole thing is a disaster. I've lost everything because of you. Alina: because of me? You were just as involved. Ryan: I'm blocking this number. Don't contact me again. I need to rebuild my life, and you're not part of it. The betrayer betrayed. There was a certain poetry to it. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my own life. I sold our house, too many memories, and purchased a modern loft downtown. I threw myself into my work, securing 2 major architectural contracts that had been on the fence for months. I reconnected with old friends who had drifted away during my marriage, started boxing competitively again, and even began casually dating a sculptor I met at a gallery opening. 3 months after our anniversary, I saw Alina for the last time. I was pumping gas when I noticed a thin, unkempt woman holding a cardboard sign near the station entrance. It took me a moment to recognize my ex-wife beneath the unwashed hair and hollow cheeks. Our eyes met briefly across the parking lot. She took a step toward me, then stopped, pride or shame holding her back. I finished pumping, got in my car, and drove away without acknowledging her. A week later, an envelope arrived at my office, no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Please, just talk to me. I have nothing left. I was stupid. I still love you. I carried it to the fireplace in my new living room, watching the flames consume her final attempt at reconciliation without reading beyond the first line. The heat against my face felt cleansing, definitive. 1 year after that anniversary, my life had transformed completely. My architectural firm had doubled in size, specializing in sustainable urban redevelopment projects. I had moved from casual dating to a more serious relationship with Camille, the sculptor whose straightforward nature and artistic passion had gradually broken through my carefully constructed walls. I had even reconciled with my estranged brother, a relationship that had suffered during my marriage to Alina, who had never approved of him. Ryan had left the state entirely, I heard through mutual connections. After accumulating gambling debts and facing potential legal troubles for missed child support payments, he had retreated to his parents' home in Arizona. His professional reputation was irreparably damaged, his LinkedIn profile frozen in time at his last legitimate position. According to Jessica, who occasionally updated me over coffee, a friendship that surprised us both, he was working at his father's hardware store, a shadow of the ambitious, arrogant man who had once declared himself destined for corporate greatness. Alina's story ended more quietly, but perhaps more completely. After months of increasingly desperate circumstances, she had returned to her parents' home in Rochester, accepting their conditions: regular church attendance, therapy with their parish priest, and working in her father's small grocery store. Her mother, during a rare phone call to check on my well-being, described her as humbled and seeking redemption. I wished her well with genuine indifference. The passionate love and burning hatred I had felt for her had both faded to a clinical case study in human weakness, hers and my own. Sometimes in quiet moments, I reflect on whether my revenge was worth the months of calculated deception, the energy expended on destroying two people who had betrayed me. I think about the man I was before, trusting, open, perhaps naive, and the harder, more cynical person who emerged from the crucible of betrayal. The answer always comes back the same. Yes, it was worth it. Not for the satisfaction of watching them suffer, though that certainly played its part in the early days. It was worth it because in the process of dismantling their carefully constructed lies, I rediscovered my own strength, a core of resilience I hadn't known existed. The true revenge wasn't the public humiliation or the financial ruin I orchestrated. It wasn't even their eventual separation from each other, poetic as that justice was. The true revenge was my absolute refusal to be their victim, to be the sad, discarded husband they had planned to leave behind while they built their new life on the ruins of mine. Instead, I had risen from those ruins myself, constructing something stronger and more authentic than the marriage that had defined me for 12 years. I had protected what was mine, not just materially, but the essence of who I was and what I deserved. Some might call my actions cold or excessive. Perhaps they were. But in a world where loyalty has become optional and commitment conditional, I had drawn a line and enforced consequences for those who crossed it. I had refused to participate in my own destruction. Last week, Camille asked about the scar on my knuckle, a small reminder of that anniversary confrontation. I told her the truth, all of it, watching her face carefully for judgment or fear. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment before speaking. "I can't say I would have done the same," she said finally, "but I understand why you did, and I respect that you don't apologize for protecting yourself." That night, as she slept beside me, I realized that the final piece of my revenge had manifested without my conscious intention. I had found happiness again, real happiness, while Alina and Ryan remained trapped in the consequences of their choices. They would live with the knowledge that they had sacrificed everything: reputation, career, relationships, financial security, for a fleeting affair that collapsed under the weight of its own selfishness. Meanwhile, I moved forward, free from the constraints of a fraudulent marriage, wiser about human nature but not defeated by its darker aspects. That is the ultimate victory, not just surviving betrayal, but transforming it into the foundation for a better life than the one that was stolen from you. Not just escaping the fire, but rising from the ashes, renewed. Some might call it revenge. I call it justice. And justice, unlike the false promises whispered between illicit lovers, endures. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.